Eagle artists, and welcome back to art. This week we're going to start a project that is going to take you 2 weeks to finish. It is going to be another SEL, self-awareness type of artwork like we did last week, and this time it is going to be a memento about our distance learning year. So let's start. One of the purposes of art is to help the artist, which is you, to understand, to share, and to remember your own experiences. Now, we have been having a very strange experience, and we have just finished 1 year of distance learning and living in a pandemic. So imagine yourself in the future, in 20 or 30 years, when you're my age. What do you want to remember about this year of distance learning and pandemic life? It is really good and useful in our remembering and in our thinking about what's happened to us to take a balanced perspective about what your personal experience has been. So we're going to be using the image of a scale. And this time we're going to be looking at negatives and positives of our year that we've had so far together. So your scale might look like mine and be full of negatives and full of positives, or you might have more negatives, not very many positives, or you might have a few negatives and a lot of positives. So that's the good thing about a scale is it can go up and down and it can reflect whatever type of experience you've had. All right, so let's get started. The first thing to do is going to be part of our assignment of this week is to make a list of the negatives and the positives for you during this past year. Everyone's list is going to look different. And you need to have at least 3 on each side of the negative and the positive. You might have 5, you might have 10, it's up to you. But at least 3 because remember, like I said, it's useful to have somewhat of a balanced perspective. You can use these prompts, these questions to help you thinking about what could be your list of negatives and positives. For example, for negatives, what has been harder for you than it was before we started distance learning? Or what has happened during this year that has made you sad? Another question could be what has been annoying about the way we have been living? So think about those 3 questions. Make a list of yourself for negatives. For positives, what has been better for you than it was before we started distance learning? Also, what has happened that has made you happy or you enjoyed? These things could actually be some of the things that are the same now as they were before we started, even as simple as you still have your favorite breakfast. And what have you gained from this year? How has this year made you a better person? So consider those questions and make your list of positives. And remember, it's okay to have more on one side than on the other. Now, our next step is, once you have your list, draw each thing. Now, remember that this is going to be into an artwork, like kind of a collage of a scale, so you're going to want to draw them small. My examples there on the right, all of those fit on one printer-sized paper, and notice that they're small even on the paper. So draw them small and then outline them with a pen or the thinnest Sharpie if you have one. Not the thick Sharpie or that's too big for this type of small drawing. So a pen or a thin Sharpie. and then color them with colored pencils. I recommend colored pencils because you can sharpen it and get to a little point, and it'll work much better for a small drawing. But if you have thin markers or something else that works for you, you can use that as well, something to color with. And as it says there on the bottom, they need to be small so that later on you can fit them all into your scale drawing, like we saw in slide 2 here. Okay. And then the next step, this is going to be the end of what you do for this week. Cut out your small drawings carefully. And you can also collect some other small objects, printed images, other mementos to add. Here I have my small drawings on the bottom already cut out. And on the top I have a little collection of mementos, things that I've had, that I've kept, or that I found around the house, which reminds me of what I did throughout this year since last March. Okay, so save your little drawings and save your little items. Put them in a Ziploc or a folder and save them all until next week. So what will be next? Next week, when we continue with the new lesson, I will be explaining how you can draw a scale, and I will explain the part of collage where you put together your drawings onto the scale. So some materials that you may want, it's recommended, it's not required, but you may want to have some watercolor paint or markers with water to make a fun like galaxy background if you want. Aluminum foil, that's how I made those shiny parts. Paper, obviously you need paper for the background with no lines. Medium size, like a bit bigger than a normal paper would be best, but any kind of paper is fine as long as it's a plain paper. So think about getting your materials for next week and let me know if you have any questions about what materials you might need or want. So remember that it's your artwork, it's your memento, it was your year of distance learning. So you'll also want to put your own special touches on this, maybe do a different kind of background, or we can talk more about options also next week. So that is it. Remember that this is a self-awareness artwork. It's just for you, and it's going to be a memento of our distance learning year. I can't wait to see what you will make and upload a photo of your small drawings into the Google Classroom for this week's assignment. I'll see you next week. Take care.